Welcome to Today in Prophecy, daily news in 15 minutes or less, news from the perspective of the Bible. And let me tell you, folks, unbelievable the pace in which we are watching things develop right now. They are not slowing down. It looks like the EU is looking for an army, and I look at this and go, are we watching a prophetic trend with the EU? Personally, I believe so. At the same time, Iran is completely collapsing. Unbelievable to watch all of these different things develop. And also, check this one out. Strengthening bonds in Oslo Symposium 2025 unites Israel and Norway against anti-Semitism in the very heart of the EU, of Europe, where you have this issue with the rising anti-Semitism. Yet Norway is saying, not so fast, standing with Israel. Incredible things are happening right now, but let me go here first. Calls grow in Germany to revive compulsory military service. Folks, I have a lot to say about this. We're going to get into this in just a minute, but I want to go to a couple of other things. First, we'll come back to what's happening in Germany. It is not just Germany. You got to look at Trump and Zelensky. You look at that meeting. Europe is looking to have a military. Folks, we are living in amazing days, but let's go here. I want to check out a few other things first. This is out of WorldNet Daily. No whites. School planned field trip for only students of color. A Minnesota public school scheming for a student trip that would go full racist and exclude whites because of their skin color has been exposed, and the trip has been canceled. The plan for the trip for only students who identify as persons of color was named in a federal civil rights complaint against Highland Park High School in Minnesota. Mark Perry, a retired professor, spotted the racist plan on social media and he took action. They maybe should have understood this was a problem before, but at least once it was brought to their attention, it said in an interview with a local television station, it was canceled. That's the least I can expect of them, that then they would do the right thing and comply with federal civil rights laws, which in this case was canceling the program, or maybe it was too late to open it up to all of the students. A report in the Daily Mail explained he was told the trip was canceled within hours of having filed the complaint. The report said the trip was intended to expose students to digital marketing and advertising careers. So it's making sure no white people show up for digital marketing and advertising careers. So you look at this and go, what is being created? It is continuing to be created. This here in the United States, this is in Minnesota, very blue state. That's where Tim Walz is. But what is happening? It is a dividing the people, a continued division of the people. You think of Matthew chapter 12, where Jesus, he's talking to the religious leaders, and he said, he made a couple of simple points. He said, a house that's divided against itself cannot stand. Listen, there are people in charge that want to destroy the United States of America. A family that's divided against itself can't stand. A house, a government, a city, a country, a nation divided against itself cannot stand. Jesus taught this. It's a fact. So what do we see? These massive attempts to continue to divide the United States of America. And then Jesus went on to say this just a couple of verses later. He said, if the thief wants to take the house, he wants to rob the house, what's the first thing he has to do? He has to bind the strong man, and then he can take the house. Listen, the dividing of America is an attempt to bind the strong man. The United States of America has been the strong man in this world for several decades now, and we are watching the dividing of America continuing. We're watching what's happening between the United States and America and the rise of a military in Europe. Listen, we're going to get into more of that in just a minute, but we can see the spiritual progression. We can understand why things like this field trip, which to many people might seem like, well, what's the big deal? No, this is what it is about. It is about dividing and conquering. It's a strategy of the enemy. It's also a strategy of the Marxists that are out there, but it's the attempt to divide America. Without a strong America, Israel can be attacked. Without a strong America, you can't have these Christian, Judeo-Christian principles that are that continue to go out there and continue to be taught. You bring down the United States of America, you can destroy much of the world, and you can rebuild a world system, especially in the Western world, the way that you want it to be built, a world without God. And hence, I'm telling you, the world is being set up for this kingdom of the beast that is coming, and we can see it in small things like that. Check this out. This is out of World Israel News. Iranian vice president resigns as regime rejects U.S. talks. The Iranian rial has collapsed to historic lows, hovering above 920,000 against the U.S. dollar. Oil tankers drift aimlessly at sea, unable to deliver their cargo. Frozen assets remain locked away in foreign banks. This is the reality of Iran under what President Donald Trump dubbed his maximum pressure campaign, a strategy now continuing into Trump's second term that has pushed the Islamic Republic's economy to the brink. We are in a full-scale war with the enemy, and they are imposing economic pressure on us. The situation today is worse than the 8-year war with Iraq, President Mossad Pezeshkian told Parliament on Sunday. With Trump's signature, the country's oil tankers and gas ships are left adrift, wondering how to get the energy to its destination. The Iranian president, listen to this. This is how much trouble Iran is in. The Iranian president also pointed to financial challenges caused by the non-payment of debts by several countries. $6 billion, he noted bluntly. Qatar, however you want to pronounce it, will not return $6 billion, and Iraq and Turkey are not paying back their debts either. So we're looking at the different dynamics. These things are taking place in Iran. Iran is in trouble. EU and US are coming to a head. Wow, it's like I'm looking at these things and I can't help but think, what is going to happen next? When we see things develop for the end times Bible prophecies to be fulfilled, and you look at the pressure against Israel, it looks like everything is coming together. But one thing I have said repeatedly is that Europe needs to rise up. I believe that the Antichrist, the beast of Revelation chapter 13, is going to rise out of Europe. Okay, we opened up with this story, and I told you I was going to come back and look at what's going on in Europe. The opening story was out of Barron's. Calls grow in Germany to revive compulsory military service. Here's this report coming out of Zero Hedge. Europe is falling, Martin Armstrong warns. That's why they need war with Russia. Says you may have seen the heated exchange between President Trump and President Zelensky of Ukraine. If not, you should. Some of the Trump highlights are President Zelensky is not ready for peace. He is gambling with World War III, and you either make a deal or we are out. It looks like Zelensky intentionally started a fight with Trump in the White House. It also looks like every country in Europe is backing more and more war in Ukraine, and now there is renewed talk of an EU army. Armstrong says why? Because they all are facing the collapse of the European Union. The debt is unbelievable. They are never consolidated, between COVID, climate change, and sanctions on Russia. The German economy has shrunk 3% to 5%. The economic growth of the EU is appalling. Europe is falling, and this is why they need war. So they are backing Zelensky. In a new report released yesterday, Armstrong lays out the case why war in Europe is coming and coming soon. Armstrong points out in this report, I gathered a bunch of headlines. London Financial Times, what's the headline? America is now the enemy of the West. This is why Trump is saying we are out. Zelensky has admitted that 58% of the $350 billion that the U.S. gave him is missing. You cut the funding and you are going to find out the truth. Trump should cut every single penny, bring it all out. Zelensky is counting on Europe to replace the United States. This is why he's so arrogant. Trump should get the hell out of NATO ASAP. Folks, I'm telling you, what we are watching is a big deal. Europe is in deep trouble. Zelensky, the guy is real, what a piece of work that guy is. Then we find out that billions of dollars worth of arms and weapons were given to the cartel and some other nefarious players through Ukraine, through Zelensky. And you look at all these different dynamics, and then we have this. This is reported out of Prophecy News Watch. Prophetic turning point, Trump-Zelensky clash ignites, calls for an EU army, and gives various things to think about here. First thing is this, a prophetic glimpse into the future. I want to talk about that. NATO's collapse, a catalyst, for European unity, a long-awaited dream, the EU army. Folks, you start putting all of these things together, and then the last part of this, the rise of the Antichrist, a European leader. Folks, I have been saying this for years, that I believe Antichrist is going to come out of a revived Roman Empire that's going to be headquartered in Europe. Also, as you look at the power and the military might of Antichrist who's coming, that would lead me to believe that a couple of things are likely going to happen. A rapture is going to happen that's going to decimate the United States of America. And at that point, the globalists in America will be able to have what they want, seize all of the military might, the weapons and ammunition that America has, and use them and unite them underneath a European army. But right now, this catalyst of the problems that are going on in Europe, the economic catastrophe that I just read from Martin Armstrong, and then you look at what they're saying, Europe needs war. Listen, when you have a problem, when you are collapsing, what do you need to do? You need war. What's going on with China? China's got its own economic collapse. They need war. What's Iran going to do? Iran is collapsing. Are they going to launch another set of missiles against Israel? Is Israel going to take out their nukes? You start looking at all of these different dynamics coming together. But again, if you just focus on Europe, the need for a European army, it seems like all of the leaders in Europe are saying it. France is saying we're going to give our nukes over to be used, if necessary, to be used by Ukraine. Germany's going to have whatever they need. We're going to have to come against Russia. This fire has been stoked for a war between Ukraine and Russia for quite some time. Friends, I'm telling you, we have been lied to by the mainstream media. Ukraine has been this giant money laundering scheme. And you start looking at the different dynamics. Again, you go prophetically, what's going to happen? The rise of Antichrist coming out of the European Union. I mentioned yesterday in one of the news reports that we are talking about, what are the European leaders saying? Specifically, one of the new heads over in the EU saying the Western world needs a new leader. In other words, we don't like this Trump guy. He's a problem. The U.S. and Europe are going like this right now. There's a lot of people who hate Trump. He's not loved at all by the globalists. But again, what are they looking for? They're looking for a new leader to come out of Europe. Europe is saying, hey, I've read the article already regarding Germany, saying, hey, we've got to have this European army. We've got to be ready to go. We've got to stoke the fires with Russia. Is that what we've got to do? This is the talk that's coming about. But nevertheless, think of this. I don't know what the timing of the rapture is going to be, but when will all of these things be fulfilled? Again, I believe Iran, what are they going to do? They're an economic catastrophe. There's I believe it is the largest per capita group of people that are turning to faith in Christ is happening in Iran. More people in China are turning to faith in Christ, but because the population is much greater, but per capita, more people in Iran are turning to Christ. There is that problem. Then they have the economic problem. What is Iran going to do? What is China going to do? Will Iran attack Israel? Will China go against Taiwan? Maybe not now that Taiwan is going to be giving their $100 billion over to the U.S. to build infrastructure for chips over here in America. And then you look at the Ukraine situation. What's going to cause Russia to say, hey, we've had enough of this, that we're going to go against Israel, Ezekiel chapter 38. And Europe looking at its own military, Europe looking at having a new leader, a leader to lead the Western world, which certainly appears to me that's what the Bible describes of the beast who's to come. Folks, we live in amazing days, but pay attention to what is going on. Everything is happening so fast. What I encourage you to do is just the word, what Jesus said. When you see these things begin to take place, you see them begin to converge, look up and lift up your head because your redemption draws near.